Good morning. My name's Ed Armentrout, and I'm the pastor here at Avondale United Methodist Church in Muncie. The scripture I've chosen today is from chapter 6, verses 30 through 34, and then from 53 to 56. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught, and he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in a boat to a desolate place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they ran there on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. Then beginning on verse 53, when they had crossed over, they came to a land of Gennesaret and moored to the shore. And when they got out of the boat, the people immediately recognized him and ran about the whole region and began to bring sick people on their beds to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he came, in villages, cities, or countryside, they laid the sick in marketplaces and implored him that they might touch even the fringe of his garment, and as many as touched it were made well. So I called this scripture today, this message, What to Do. So kind of give you a little background here. The disciples are reporting back to Jesus after they'd been sent out in twos. And there's so many people around him that they're just coming upon him. They're not even giving them a time to rest or to eat, to do kind of the regular things. So Jesus makes this decision that he's going to take them to the other side of the lake for a time of rest and peace. So for us, when we think of peace, sometimes we think of the lack of violence, but peace is personal peace, personal comfort. So one of the things that I'd like for you to think about this week is there should be a rhythm to your Christian life. So we go to God away from man. We go to God for a time to pray. And after we've had that pray and rest with God, then we're going to go back to man from God. So it's just like how we live our regular lives. We have this rhythm of sleep and work. We can't work if we do not have any sleep, because you can only go so long without sleep and rest. But if you don't work and make yourself tired to some degree, you're not going to be able to sleep. And so it requires both of those things. That same idea of sleep and work should also be how we go from prayer to God and rest in God to a time of doing things for man. So for us, there's two things that might happen here. You can have too much activity. So you can't live a Christian life unless we spend time with God. So however you decide to do that, whether it's first thing in the morning, the last thing before you go to bed, whether it's readings that you might do. So in my case, I begin each morning with a devotion and then a reading. I use an application on my phone called Bible Study, and you have a lot of different things you can pick from. Right now, I'm working on reading 1 Corinthians, but it gives me time to read through that devotion, to read Scripture, to go to prayer and God. It gives us a time to speak to God. And maybe more important than speaking to God is to listen to God, to listen to his voice, what he's wanting us to do, how he's wanting us to react in this world. And so that time of listening, that time of prayer, it gives us a chance to recharge us with a spiritual energy and strength. No matter who you are, you're going to have some things that happen that require work from you. It's going to be some kind of a burden. And so I think this recharge really allows us to get through those times when life's harder for whatever reason, whether it's illness or family issues, things going on in the world, whatever that is. Those things that having God as part of your life can make it easier to get through. So if there's too much activity, then I think the opposite of that is there's too much withdrawal time. Now, withdrawal time might be used wisely. You could do it to study. You could do prayer. But if you're just doing devotion for doing devotion's sake, then maybe that's not the best use of your time. So kind of an example of that, you would be doing a devotion and you may hear God's voice saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. But that devotion and prayer should end up in requiring some kind of action on your part. So we can be seeking God, not just so that we personally become closer to God, but what is God asking us to do? So part of that asking is going to be, how are we going to interact with humanity, with other mankind, with the people that we're around? It can't be we just hide ourselves in a closet. And so one of the things I put in my notes is you can't seek God in secret. Well, let me rephrase it. We may seek God in a secret place, whether it's a closet, whatever you find a comfortable place. But after we leave that secret, private place, then we have to go out and meet all mankind in the busiest place you could find. And so in my notes, I put the marketplace. 2,000 years ago, that would have been the place where everybody goes. So wherever it is for you, your community, whether it's a marketplace, whether it's the main street, whether it's the local cafe, how are you going to interact with humanity in an open place? Now, if you're reading this, you may say, well, how can the people get to the other side of the lake before he can? Well, the Sea of Galilee, which is the lake they're talking about here, it's about 10 miles long and only 4 miles across. And a lot of the part that we read about in the Bible is the northern section. And so if the wind was against you, you could literally walk around the lake faster than you could take a boat across, and that's what happened here. They beat him to the other side. And so even though he didn't get this time of rest and a time for them to recharge, he talks about them being without a shepherd. And I think he gives us 3 different examples of being without a shepherd. So he says they're sheep without a shepherd, because if they don't have a shepherd, sheep will get lost. Well, we can get lost the same way. We either get lost in the direction of what God's asking us to do and we end up doing something on our own, or we lose our direction in life. We don't stay on the path that God has laid out for us. He talks about sheep without a shepherd we can't find our pasture. So pasture may be a place of food, but it also may be a place of rest. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I think about sheep grazing in a green field, it always makes me think of peaceful things. And so maybe it's not so much finding food, it's more of a time of rest, to contemplate what God is asking you to do. Not necessarily prayer, but it could be prayer, but that finding a comfortable place of rest. And then the last thing, sheep without a pasture, they have, excuse me, they have no defense from danger. So just like animals will attack a herd of sheep, there are things in the world that'll attack us. So whether it's things we read or things we're around or people or places, but without that shepherd to lead us, we miss out on acknowledging when we're in danger. It allows our soul not to be protected from danger that comes around us. So what are some of the things that we can learn from this message? If you think about all the people that kind of raced to the other side to see Jesus, they really wanted stuff. I mean, it talks about illness and injury and those kind of things. So they all wanted something from Jesus. They just wanted things that would help them. They wanted to use him for personal needs. So are we like that as well? So we shouldn't be takers. So what I would tell you is a taker is somebody that always wants something from you or from the world, but is never really willing to give back. And a few advantages that. Sometimes we have friends that take advantage of us. And in all these examples, you could be the person taking advantage of a friend as well. So, for example, when the girls were young, they had a friend that their bedtime, I think, was 9 o'clock then. She would call like at 10 and say, I didn't get the homework assignment for tonight. And I would tell her, I said, well, you're going to have to figure it out tomorrow because we don't allow them to have phone calls. And she goes, well, if I don't get this done, I'm going to get, because that's not my problem. You can't be calling people just because it works out for you and then think that's okay. So you're thinking, oh, well, this was just a young girl. Well, her mom would do the exact same thing. She would call late at night and want a phone number of somebody because she wanted you to look up for it. It was very odd, I know, for an adult to do that, but it reminded me of this when I was reading this pastor this week. Sometimes people make use of the church. So they'll use the church for a baptism, whether it's theirs or family. They'll use it for marriage. they'll use the church and the pastor for a funeral. They'll come to the church in time of need or in time of prayer, but once that event's over, whether it's the baptism, marriage, funeral, or the event that caused the prayers to be wanted, they end up not giving any time or effort back to the church. And so they end up, as I said earlier, they end up becoming takers. They're just taking what they can get from the church. And for us, when we go to God in prayer, are we really praying for God to guide us and direct us, to give us some kind of a voice so that we know what we should be doing in this instance, how God should lead us? Or are we just saying, God, here's what I want, and it's a demand? I'm not asking for guidance. I'm not asking really for prayer. I'm telling God what I want. And so that's another way of taking. We don't really respect God. We are just simply demanding what we want. And so if you take all those things, you say, well, those are all kind of negative things, or they could be negative, then what should we be doing? What's the opposite of that? Well, for us, we should offer love. We should offer love to everyone, whether you like them or not. And it's way easier to love somebody you like than somebody you don't like. But I think what this scripture is saying is we should love everyone, and we read that over and over again. We should be willing to give service, not only to our church, our community, but we should be able to give service to ones around us. Because sometimes we have family and friends and they just need our help. And maybe, the other part of this is about devotion. Are we just going to help the people that we know and like? Are we going to try to help people that we will never see, ever meet? So kind of a good example I can think of that is there's always a blood shortage right now. Since COVID, whether it's the Red Cross or Versity or however they pronounce it here, there's never enough blood for people to have for surgeries and accidents. A lot of the blood is used for cancer treatments, which is something I didn't know until a few years ago. If you decide to make a commitment to give blood to any one of those agencies, you're almost never going to know who that's going to. You may get an email from them, thank them, and it may say, oh, this is so-and-so at Blood Donations did this and that for me. But it isn't going to say, you gave your blood to Jane Doe, and Jane Doe lived because you gave her. You're just not going to know the person. And so do you have that ability? Has God led you to a place where you can give of yourself, in this case literally because you're giving blood, give of yourself to people that you're never going to know. You're never going to know who it was. You have no idea if it helped them or not. Was it for a cancer and they needed that blood because their blood had become so anemic, but the end result was they passed away anyway? But you were willing to do it because you thought God was leading you in a way that you were supposed to try to help mankind. And so there are other examples of that, but we are to offer our love and service and devotion to all. We shouldn't be demanding, well, I'll do this for you, but only if you do this for me. That's not what God is asking us to do. God is asking to give of ourselves, and we can do that not because of us, but because of the grace and the love that he gives us each and every day. So here at Avondale United Methodist Church, our services are on Sunday at 11 a.m. Every Tuesday, there's an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that meets here at the church at 5:30. It's for both men and women. On Thursday, we have a meal for the community that we serve, and anybody's welcome to come to that. It's a free meal. On the second Thursday of the month, Second Harvest comes with the food giveaway. We've been doing something called the mobile market, but they've been having some problems with it. But there'll be some kind of food to give away for at least through the fall. Not sure we'll do that in the winter. That still is kind of outstanding. We have communion the first Sunday of the month. If you're not able to come to church, we would be happy to bring communion to you. You can do that by giving me a call again, Ed Armentrout. My number is 765-749-4354. Again, the phone number is 765-749-4354. We'd like to see you at church any Sunday, and we thank you for watching the video. You have a good week.